listening to the Studio Shangri-La podcast, broadcasting on the topics, the arts and sciences, philosophy, society and culture, technology, and more, and the interconnection of all these things. Today's topic is mind plus matter. Ethics in a quantum universe. Mind plus matter. The interconnection of these is indubitably strong. And which came first? Seemingly, it was mind, organizing complex molecules into a grand design, from which forth came many complex organisms into the grand schema of life that we experience today. You will see, in studying science, that all organisms can be traced to a common ancestry. Into a unification that is one. So mind and matter are inevitably connected, and one influences the other in a cooperation. That the perspective of mind definitely does matter and influence matter. And the behaviors and laws of matter also influence mind. And they work together in a partnership that you can see down to the molecular level and also to the subatomic level, the level of particles. The mind and the power of mind is indeed malleable. And I feel this especially important to bring up alongside other topics of late that I've been talking about. Materialistic topics such as that of environment. And I brought up the fact that some materials could be considered toxic or less than ideal for usage in environment. And we see, in this case, that these natural laws and behaviors do indeed matter and have effects. However, the form and frame of perspective that the mind creates is also very important. And I'll give you an experiential example of mine. That it is possible to become too fixated on the negative or possible negative characteristics of materials, to become too fixated on it to the point that it creates disturbance and aversion. The mind can, in fact, to a certain degree, overcome the properties of matter. I'm not saying to become crazed or obsessed with trying to do this. It is a cooperation, as I've pointed out before. Specifically, in talking about non-toxic materials and trying to implement certain changes in my home environment, I found myself becoming too preoccupied and even a bit agitated and inflamed by these ideas to almost a counterproductive extent. I'm not saying that it's not important to take positive environmental action, but I'm saying that the state of mind and perspective and frame of mind from which you come at it definitely matters. Is it constructive, in a flow, and positive feeling? If it causes anxiety and fear, it's not in flow. The fact is that all materials come from the same source and the same molecules. So, it is illogical to be too afraid. Of course, one's eyes have to be open to the effects of the natural laws that we have on Earth and the behaviors of these materials and how they are programmed by us to behave and interact with the environment. Yes, there is a measure of power in the crafting and programming of these materials, yet also a behavior, sets of behaviors, somewhat independent of us, or perhaps I should say interdependent. And there are some materials which clearly have adverse effects on people and the environment and animals. And there are some actions that have clearly adverse effects on all these things. Just as there are quite obviously positive, constructive actions and measures and perspectives that influence things quite positively. And we can feel these things. We can feel the energy of these things. And whether it is going to be positive and constructive or destructive, or possibly not towards the goal intended. So, regarding health, the mind does indeed have influence over the state of matter. I don't want to go so far as to say control. It does seem to be, as I said before, a set of cooperative relationships. That there are things to be respected on both sides. Isn't that amazing, though, that your state of mind and set of beliefs can have a very strong influence over your health and circumstances, even with a set of seemingly adverse circumstances. And this is how even an individual can transform the scenario around them with a very strong mindset. And what is a mindset? I've mentioned this before in a previous broadcast and articles. A set of brainwaves or waves that do indeed travel through the air. It's not hokum, it's science. Although, Science is magic, and magic is science. Right? I've never been particularly fond of the this versus that jargon when it comes to the behavior of life. Some of it can be explained with scientific language, and some of it can be explained by spiritual language, and some of it can be explained by, well, something like music. Because that's a lot of what it all is: waves moving through the air. So, the waves of the mind influencing matter. I have to be careful about becoming too averse to even the toxic substances of which sometimes I talk about. For example, alcohol or complex plastic polymers. Okay, I have to be I have to be careful in not becoming too fearful or anxious or averse, because at the root, all of these things have common ancestry and common molecular components. And in doing so, in considering these things, I perform a sort of spiritual or quantum chemistry, if you will. Now, what do I know of these things? Well, I'm very well read and experienced. And at the same time, I acknowledge I have so much more to experience. In my mind, and its influence over me, my matter, my body, my life, I choose to support open ended and open minded circumstances, such as that of life itself. I hear that little phrase, life is short, all too often. It's a short phrase, and in my consideration, a small minded perspective. We can actually see, historically, that life is long, and that life persists and persists until life becomes longer and longer and stronger. Yeah, there's the rhyme. What does life want? To create and to perpetuate itself as the great mind in multiple forms. This is my viewpoint, of course, and I find it to be a tremendously encouraging, comforting, and also logical one. These are the conclusions I draw from my studies thus far. That life can be broad and long. That the great life force perpetuating itself over generations to the achievement of life and more life. And so, therefore, my mind tells my matter that it is indeed possible to overcome that which was once thought impossible. And honestly, I think that certain substances can be overcome chemically. However, that the effects of the natural laws on Earth and the physical reality and consequences have to be respected and used productively based on the information we have accumulated thus far and the very valuable information of our senses, the senses we have been gifted with, and the senses which continue to grow and become more perceptive of the reality around us and expanding out beyond the earth, which we are doing and will do. Yes, the great mind has crafted for us a universe, and the number of people on this planet keeps growing. Tell you what, that's why there are other planets out there, too, for us to expand to. And when we're ready, as we are, so they too, those planets, will be ready. It is a great orchestration that we have already seen in play. As we become aware of our need to expand beyond this earth, and of course treat it better, that more possibilities are opening up to us. On recently discovered exoplanets, for example, and with development of deep space propulsion, another favorite topic of mine, and many others I can safely assume. The common ancestry of all organisms you can read about in the sciences, particularly biology and chemistry, many of them really, that there is evidence, direct evidence. And what forces moved to create the first chains of molecules that turned into more complex organisms? There are different proofs, theories. Such as electric discharges from the sun, stimulating the creation of complex molecules, amino acids, ultraviolet radiation, and electricity from the sun interacting with elements on the earth to spark this creation. Yes, these cosmic forces moved to create. If you don't consider that a grand cosmic orchestration, I don't know what to tell you. Clearly belies a cosmic intelligence in my mind. A definite design. The interconnection into a grander or unified organism or mind. That does go along with the idea of the holographic or quantum universe. Very recent studies and experiments, which I've cited before, have connected particles on different ends or locations of the universe, particles here and particles far out, being interconnected and even affected by each other. The holographic universe, that concept, those terms come into play in implying the mirrored or reactionary effects of actions and intentions. Okay, and this can be proven. And I've written about this as well in reading my articles in previous podcasts that effect at a distance between seemingly disparate elements. It happens. What is done and the way it is done. That these things have effects and matter in shaping or influencing our reality. Which brings me to the next part of what I'm talking about. The implications that this has on ethics. To me, it implies that ethics matter. Not only that, they are built in to the universe. Yes, there is the measure of free will and choice. However, within the certain parameters, we find ourselves from the development over eons of intelligence. And the interactive parameters imply that ethics matter, what we do, and how we do them, the way that we do them, and the intentions that we have do matter and affect us. And the energy of what we do. And you can notice that as you try to become too controlling of your circumstances, that can become an unstable or volatile energy. And it's best to be in flow or be like water, as Bruce Lee said. That's one of his more famous quotations. To be like water, my friend. And not try to grab on or chase or be too forced. So, ethics. That what we do perpetuates more of that. That is how it seems. That what we see and perceive can multiply. So, do we want to be perpetuating death and violence, harm, suffering, taking advantage of, deliberately doing harm, in other words? Is that something that we want to be perpetuating more of? So the ethics built into a quantum universe says we should be doing more of what we want to perpetuate and thinking more and creating more of that. So, if I want an open ended life, I should think more about life and staying alive and act accordingly. Act as if you will. In order to make that the new reality, the evolution. I'm going to add this on here that inflicting suffering, such as that of the practices of animal agriculture up to now, or that of warlike behaviors, that those actions have ramifications.